Welcome back to New Amsterdam Radio, the podcast for creatives, thinkers, and doers. It is I, the mayor, Global Boys, high up in the mayor's office, chatting to people who are doing the dang thing. And we talked about what it means for a creative to get their finances in order. And last week, we talked about creatives getting their gut health in order. But what about total health? That's what we're going to talk about today on this edition of New Amsterdam Radio. So please welcome my special guest, Mayim Vega, who's going to talk to us all about that. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. This is a great day, and I love your energy.
Oh, thank you.
I'm glad to be here to talk to you.
Yeah, likewise. So you got to tell me, because I am new to this, what exactly is a naturopathic herbalist, and what does that mean for your career?
Yeah. What does it mean for what?
Excuse me? For your career.
For my career. Okay. Yes. So, naturopathic herbalist. So, I am not a licensed medical doctor, so I had to pick a title for myself that that people kind of were familiar with, and that explained, like everything that I do. So when I went to school, I did my certificate. I took a certification programs in nutrition, herbalism, and holistic health. And so I could just call myself like a nutrition coach, or I could say, or a nutritional consultant, or I could say I'm an herbalist. But like instead of all the commas, I just kind of tried to look for a title that that encompassed everything. And I think most people are familiar with the word herbalism because herbalists are ancient, right? We've had herbalists around in our world for thousands of years, right? They were the medicine women in all types of cultures. And in America, we call them herbalists, right? There's Chinese herbalists, there's Ayurvedic herbalism. Every tradition has herbalists. And it's interesting that they're usually known as women. I think that's a really interesting part of it too. Yeah. And now herbalists have always been holistic, herbalists have always looked at not just, what herb can I give them, but they've always looked at, what is your life like? What is your diet like? Different things, it's not just about herbs, even though herbs were, kind of central, right? And so naturopathy is a more modern term that people are more familiar with. But if you just say naturopath, sometimes people might mistaken you for a naturopathic medical doctor, which I want to be clear that I'm not a medical doctor. So I use the term naturopathic herbalism to kind of encompass. So naturopathy covers everything as well. Like a naturopath will understand usually about supplements and herbs and just the total, like everything that needs to be considered when trying to help someone with any kind of health issue. Sure. So I'm trying to combine a modern term, which is naturopathy, with an ancient term, which is herbalism. And maybe it wasn't the best idea, but I felt like that was a nice way to do it by using that title.
You raise a good point. You're already off the rails, but you raise a good point. A lot of times when we're multidisciplined and we have the pursuit of knowledge in different avenues, it may be hard to encompass all of that to something that's like short or sweet or branded, if you will. Like, how long was that process until you found the combination of words that work best for you?
You know what? I go on inspiration. So when I think it, I'm like, yes, that's it. That's usually how I roll. So it didn't take me long. Because I knew that the word nutrition or nutritionist, first of all, that title is protected in a lot of states. So I can use the word nutritionist in certain states legally, being unlicensed, but I can't use it everywhere. But sure. Herbalist is not licensed. That title is not licensed anywhere in America, so I can freely use that term. And the term naturopath is licensed, however, in some states. However, if it's just an adjective, then it gets more free. Sure. It becomes more in the free range.
So let's take a step back then. I mean, this wasn't the original career path, but it definitely was a path that spoke to you. So what were you doing right before? And when was a moment when you said, I need to go down this road. I need to learn more about this. I need to become well-versed in this.
Yeah. Yeah, I was formerly so I'm a computer scientist by education, and I used to work at the NASA Ames Research Center as a computer scientist. And then after that, after I got married and had my first child, I decided I want to be a stay-at-home mom. But we lived in the Silicon Valley. Things are even more expensive now, but they were still very expensive back then. And so my husband's like, well, you can't just not work because we can't afford that. So I became a freelancer, and I did digital marketing for high-tech companies like networking companies, cybersecurity companies, big data storage, things like that, which, kind of was related to what I did at NASA, at least the industries, So I did that. And as I was building my first business, I was actually vegetarian/vegan. And that was the first problem. I didn't know it back then, but I thought I was being healthy, but I was actually depriving myself of important nutrients that my body needed. And then being an entrepreneur, it's not like being, NASA's nonprofit, is research driven. It was really fun to work. And I could come in late and just leave late. It wasn't this tight, like you got to be there at 9 a.m. or 8 a.m. It was very, very relaxed. Being an entrepreneur is quite different. You're not working 8 hours a day. You're working maybe 10 or 12 hours a day spread throughout the day, because I started outsourcing some of my work to where I'm from, which is the Philippines, to some people in the Philippines to help me as my business was growing. And it was just, dealing with tough customers and clients sometimes. It was just very, very stressful. And my diet was not supporting my stress levels, and it was depleting me of B12 and other important nutrients. And then it started causing me just massive migraines. And I started taking the normal, Tylenol, whatever, over-the-counter stuff. And they helped at first, but if you don't address the root issue, those won't help you forever. Like, you've got to get to the root, right? So it got so bad one day that I went to the emergency room, dragged my 2 babies to the emergency room, and I was in excruciating pain. We didn't have any medical insurance at that time.
A migraine.
And, it was a migraine, yeah. Okay. But it was I never even experienced headaches before that. And it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And then the doctor thought I had a brain tumor. And then they did a bunch of experiments and tests on me, and then they concluded that there was nothing wrong with me. I just had a bad headache, and here's some stronger painkillers, Valium, basically. Go home, bye. I'm like, what? That's crazy. Like, first she thought I had a brain tumor. I think I'm here dying because I can't sleep. I can't sleep. I can't function, with my work. I can't take care of my children. And then after a bunch of tests, like, there's nothing wrong with you. How could there be nothing wrong with me? Like, this is not normal for a human being, this amount of pain. There's obviously something wrong with me, but they had no answers. Thousands of dollars later, after I gave them thousands of dollars. And how much did she pay for her education? The doctors and the nurses there, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and all the equipment that they use to test me with. How much did that cost? Hundreds of thousands of dollars to build up this whole entire system that could give me no answers. And that wasn't the only thing that happened, but that was the final straw. And I was like, this is ridiculous. I need to figure things out by myself. Like, I was a professional in what I did, and I expected them to be professionals in what they did and either give me the right answer or refer me to someone who did have the answer. But they were like, no, there is no answer. They didn't even try to refer me to anyone. They're like, there is no answer. And so, like, okay.
Yeah. So you had mentioned, or you had once said, I think you reiterated there, that the modern medical system is broken. Right? And I say that it's many ways to interpret that. And I wanted to see where your perspective was. Is it an institutional thing? Is it kind of like companies and greed? Is it just because we don't have an understanding of the human body being a different complexity? Is it more of understanding cultures and backgrounds and blood types? How is it broken exactly?
No, all the knowledge and experience that we need to be healthy and heal ourselves is out there because I
Mhm.
discovered it. And there are a lot of holistic healers that have found it. And I'm not saying I know everything, and no one knows everything, of course, but I know a lot, and I know a lot more than the medical doctor that told me there was nothing wrong with me. I know a lot more than her about how to heal not only myself but other people, other of my students that I've helped. So it's not a lack of knowledge.
Mhm.
It's not a lack of experience. I do believe it's institutional, and there's a self-perpetuating cycle because of pharmaceutical industries who are in bed with the government and who also fund the modern medical systems. And there's a lot of very powerful people who suppress truth in order to keep their to keep big pharma and that money machine going. And there's a lot of politicians that are also paid off to
Mhm.
keep that machine going.
Well, I again, the whole the rabbit hole could be very deep, right? But I always wondered, wouldn't it behoove a certain politician then to be like the anti-farmer and be like, I'm the politician for health, or is that something where you can't even cross those streams? There's no way for an advocate for holistic education in Congress or anything like that.
A politician isn't going to feel like they have the authority to go against big pharma themselves. Usually it's scientists and doctors that do that. And there are a lot of whistleblowers that do that. And there are a
Mhm.
lot of there are a lot of medical doctors that on their own learn about holistic health and healing. They don't usually learn about it in medical school. On their own, they have to dig into the research and the books and history and stuff like that, and they find the answers. A politician can't make that call. They're a politician. They're going to go with medical consensus, scientific consensus. And usually scientific consensus is bought and paid for by the pharmaceutical companies. So I can't put this one on politicians except that they need money to keep their political campaigns going, and that is why they advocate for certain things.
Sure.
But
Uh,
I can't blame it just on the politicians.
Absolutely. I understand.
Except for if there were just if politicians just focused on freedom, on medical freedom, then that would be good. Instead of like saying, okay, well, this majority of scientists says this, so we're going to mandate this. But majority, you don't know why the majority is saying a certain thing. The majority at one point in time said that cigarettes were good, and certain pesticides were good, and the majority means nothing.
Mhm.
Majority, the Bible says, do not incline towards the majority in order to do evil. It warns us about following the majority. I don't know if you're religious. I'm a very religious person. So, um, I mean, that means something to me. And every scientific breakthrough that we've had, the majority used to believe against that truth that we now believe is truth. So
Sure.
majority
Uh,
is
Yeah, I'm a Christian by blood. I'm not by practice. I'm pretty much don't do all the checkpoints, but I'm really well versed in going to Sunday school. Okay, so let's take understanding the idea of what it means for holistic health. I'm sure you did your own research to find out what works best for you. Was it a situation where there's like a testing phase? Like, how did your own experiments run once you like rediscovered things that could potentially work and you had a chance to see what did work best for you? What was that process like?
Well, the first thing I found was back when Google was more reliable. Google's not reliable anymore, but Google is also bought out by big pharma. And the sites that they will serve on the front page usually don't have the kind of information that is really powerful if you're looking for holistic ways. But there was once upon a time when it wasn't like that. And I did find some quick fixes, which is basically B12 was the major one, and also feverfew, which was an herb that gave me a quick fix, but still didn't really address the root cause. But it started pointing me in the right direction. And the first school that I actually went to was very much promoting vegetarian veganism. So that didn't help very much. So I knew, from just a little bit of studies that B12, my body was severely deficient in, and that the natural source of B12, which is very easy to look this up, is animal products. So against my school where I got certified, against their, kind of advice, I was like, I know that my body needs animal products, so I'm going to just do that. And I felt better. And later on is when I learned about Dr. Weston A. Price. He was a holistic dentist. He's passed away already, but he wrote the book Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. It's a really important book, I believe, because as a holistic dentist, and dentists are medical doctors also, he traveled around the world and he studied lots of different indigenous tribes in different countries. And he found that their native diets comprised mostly of meat that they hunted, meat and fish that they hunted, and a little bit of herbs and berries that they foraged, or honey that they found, and a little bit of dairy, but that also was not very much. And he found that they had perfect dental health. They had no cavities, even though they didn't brush their teeth. They didn't have all the chronic diseases that we have here in the Western world, the modernized world. And he also found that women who in the modernized world, who at the age that we normally become infertile and hit menopause, in these indigenous tribes, they were still having babies. So and this was not isolated to an indigenous tribe in one part of the world. He saw this, all over the world in different types of indigenous tribes. These were the commonalities of all of them. And he also saw that as these indigenous people started adopting more modernized diets, they started getting the modern diseases. So that's when I was like, oh, and there also, veganism is a modern day cultural experiment. I understand the value. When I first became vegetarian, I saw my energy levels going up. I saw a lot of improvements, but I think one of the reasons that that people become, when they first become vegetarian, that they experience a lot of health benefits is because they have to cut out a lot of the junk food and processed food, And so you do that, you will get better. You will feel better. But, have you seen the movie Super Size Me?
Yeah, it's classic.
Did you know that so his girlfriend was a vegan chef, right? And she nursed him back to health after that whole McDonald's self-poisoning experiment. And she nursed him back to health with a vegan diet. But herself, at some point in time, she felt intuitively that her body started needing more protein, animal protein. And she became a really big, popular advocate for veganism in the vegan community. And when she started listening to her body and, eating more meat, the vegan community basically lashed out at her. But she's like, you know what? I'm sorry, but who are you going to care about more, the majority or what your body is telling you? You have to listen to what your body's telling you. And as an herbalist, a lot of the protocols for health and healing that I sometimes teach people involves veganism, raw food, juicing and stuff like that. But for some people, especially people with autoimmune disorders, it actually involves going more carnivore. So it depends on what your body needs. And sometimes your body does need a vegan raw juice food cleanse. And sometimes your body needs a break from vegetables, and I experienced that twice in my life, where it was meat that saved the day instead of, and this was when in my two times in my life where I felt like I'm on my deathbed. Maybe I need to like, go revisit my will or something like that. It was actually animal products that nursed me back to health. I love everything though. I love eating fruit, vegetables. I love everything. I'm not like everyone should eat meat only or everyone should do one thing only. I'm like, we're omnivores. Let's embrace that. We just got to all cut out the junk food. That's the biggest culprit, is the junk food, not meat or vegetables necessarily per se, unless your body needs a break from certain things.
Yeah, you mean things are salted and deep fried is bad for you? Oh no.
Yeah, like McDonald's.
Right. So it's a question I ask a lot of our guests. So I mean, it may seem very direct, very forward, but you come across your research and you understand what works for you in your body, but you could have just kept that to yourself and called it a day. Like, I feel great, the end. But you decided to launch your website, Arukah.com, where you could also share that knowledge with your clients. And what made you decide to say, hey, look, this is knowledge that needs to be shared. It needs to be given to other people.
Gosh, I mean, like, because I saw, like I said, this wasn't just me. This was, this wasn't the only, that issue that I told you about. That wasn't the only issue. That was just the last straw. And how many people around us do we see that they're just loaded with medication after medication? They're just getting worse and worse and worse. I mean, we see that all around us. And I just felt like, this is what I'm called to do. You see, I'm Jewish, and there's this concept in Judaism called tikkun olam, which means repair the world, heal the world. And they say that when we go through some kind of crisis in our life, that sometimes the reason why God allows you to go through that crisis is so that you can then help other people who are going through that crisis, help them find the way out. And so that's how I felt. I was like, who else is doing this? There are other people that are doing this, but there's always a need for more, obviously, because until this knowledge becomes as common as the air we breathe, we need more people to bring this message out. And the entities that are promoting all the propaganda and withholding truth, they're so powerful, and they're backed with so much money, politics, and like, we need more grassroots movers and thinkers, and people who are willing to kind of put their lives on the line. It can be very dangerous to do this work of going against big pharma and accepted science. This can actually be very dangerous work for a lot of people.
Sure.
A lot of holistic healers, when they get really popular, they have to move to Central America or something like that, or stop their practice and only educate people, because if they do both, they will get their license taken away or thrown in jail or something like that, because they're not doing things the way these 3-letter organizations have mandated they should do things.
Well, it doesn't quite apply to me because I'm living in Los Angeles, but I've seen that typically our rural American citizens here in the United States, they tend to have a bit of a disadvantage where they may not have access to the best food or the best medical care or holistic care. Is there anything they can do to put themselves on the right path to holistic health by your estimation?
I think the key is knowledge. I mean, also, I would also question, like, is what you think is healthy, is it really healthy? Like, just keep questioning. Things, especially if you don't feel right. If you don't feel right and you're working with one body of knowledge, well, maybe there's something flawed with that, or maybe there's a missing piece. And so I really believe in just people empowering themselves with knowledge. And that's what so Arukah.com is all about, is empowering people with knowledge.
Yeah. I also saw you actually have 3 Hebrew lessons. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I teach Hebrew too.
That's pretty rad. I grew up in Brooklyn, so I was real open to like seeing like, Hebrew language on signage and being spoken, and even Yiddish too. And so it's kind of cool to see it still being, practiced and being able to share it. So on New Amsterdam Radio, we have a bunch of department questions, kind of like a lightning round that we ask our guests. Are you down to play?
Maybe.
Okay, well, one question I'm kind of iffy about now after having our discussion, but we'll talk about this. So do you believe in days off? And if so, how do you celebrate?
Days off? If I weren't Jewish, I wouldn't.
Fair enough.
But in Judaism, we're mandated to take a ton of days off, and I'm a workaholic by nature. So and it's good. I'm glad that I'm very glad to be Jewish, because if not, then I wouldn't spend as much time with my family and friends as I do, because I am really a workaholic.
Again, 2 degrees of separation there. I went to public school in New York City, so we got a lot of those days off as well, growing up. Everyone collects something. What do you collect?
Oh, I don't know. What do I collect? I collect audiobooks. I love audiobooks.
Okay. Yeah. Do you have a favorite?
No, I have a ton of favorites.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, I've been really into Gabor Mate. He's an author, and he discusses the connection between stress and trauma and health and healing and performance. So that's an author that I'm into recently. Gabor Mate. It's an author.
That's the list after this. What is an app you cannot live without?
An app that I cannot live without.
It could be a scheduler. It could be music. It could be a game. Just any app.
Yeah. Okay. I guess just Google Calendar. Like I really plan my day around that.
Yeah, I think we have a lot of tech entrepreneurs like, oh, I don't have any startups. It's like, bro, if you look at your mail, then that counts. So that counts. Do you consider yourself self-made? Why or why not?
I mean, yeah, like just me and God. Yeah, self-made basically. Because I guess in this line of work, holistic health and healing, like you're not gonna get a job. You're not gonna get a good job as a herbalist, you really have to really have to be entrepreneurial to make it in this line of work. So yeah, I guess I would consider myself self-made.
And lastly, and this is the iffy one, what is your favorite junk food if you partake?
Ice cream.
Okay, what's your favorite ice cream?
Well, so I try to make it as healthy as possible. So we make our own ice cream. And we use like organic milk and just vanilla, because with vanilla you can put whatever, I like to put sometimes I like to put like coffee, like instant coffee on it. I can make coffee ice cream. You can add fruit to it. So just vanilla, homemade organic vanilla ice cream.
Yeah, I don't know who the bad PR is about saying vanilla is boring, but it is clutch. No one turns you down vanilla ice cream, if I'm right. Well, I just gotta say thanks so much for being on the show, New Amsterdam Radio podcast from Creatives. But now here's the fun part: if someone wants to learn more about your research or work with you or connect with you, how do they go about doing that?
Just Arukah.com, ARUKAH.com. That's my certification program, and also I'm coming out with a new book and detox program, and that's available at dothisdetoxthat.com.
Oh, fantastic. I'll be on the lookout for that. We'll put those in the show notes. Thank you so much, man, for being on New Amsterdam Radio, the podcast for creatives. Can't wait to see your brand a year, 2 years, 5 years from now.
Thank you so much for having me. This is a lot of fun.